Welcome to another episode of the Go With John Show. I'm John Jorgensen, and today I'm sitting here with Jimmy Lange. He's a former pro boxer with roughly 50 fights and 26 knockouts under his belt. Now he's a father, a motivational speaker, and an entrepreneur. Today, we're going to talk about his amazing boxing stories, some of the places he's been, and the people he's met along the way, as well as what he's up to today. So, Jimmy, welcome to the Long and Foster Studios in McLean, Virginia.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, tell us, first of all, let's talk about boxing, because that is your passion in life.
Yeah, greatest sport in the world, one-on-one, and it's just from the very first day of stepping into a boxing ring as a small child. I'm not talking about just me. I'm talking about everybody.
Right.
You know, that you go in that gym and it's like hallowed ground. Mm-hmm. And the culture of boxing really has helped to raise so many just very strong, well-rounded young men.
Right.
And it saved a lot of lives.
Right. Well, so how did you get into boxing? I mean, what was your first memory of boxing or wanting to be a boxer? How old were you?
Probably my first memory of boxing, I'm going to date myself, but my father used to take me to the fights, and he took me to this big place that, you know, he kept telling me about it, and we're going to go and we're going to see this and everything. And to me, I had no idea what I was in for, but where he was taking me, we were getting on the train, we were going to Madison Square Garden, and we were going to see Roberto Duran in a comeback fight against Davey Moore. And it was a zoo. And it was an absolute zoo. And I saw a replay of it recently, and it's funny because your memories kind of, you look back and when you see it again, it's nothing like you remember, but it was exactly like I remember. It was a sold out, just I'll repeat, zoo. It was. I mean, when Duran got in the ring, it was just insane, and he dismantled this opponent, and it was like a king walking out. I mean, I don't think they carried him out of there, but right. they might as well have. They might as well have. I mean, he just was top of the world,
right?
And that's my first memory, I think.
So how old were you? Do you think you were when that happened?
I would have been about 6 or 7.
Wow, that's pretty young.
Yeah. And you know, it was part of my life as a spectator,
right.
Very young, and I was put into a gym. I don't think I was necessarily put into a gym to become a pro fighter. You know, right. I don't think it was written in the stars. It was an activity.
Right.
And
so who put you in the gym?
My father.
And how old were you when you hit the gym?
It was around that time.
Really?
It was around. I was about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And there was a little gym down, and it was in Falls Church, Virginia. And it was called Olympia Boxing Center, and I just took to it, and that's what I ended up doing as a life.
Wow. So now, why did your dad put you? I mean, it's not an every day that a father takes his kid and puts him into a boxing club, more or less, at 7 years old, right? Was there some reason that your dad did that? Were you?
No, I wish I could tell. I wish I had an interesting story about being bullied or you know, and that was going to teach me to fight. I think he intended on doing that the day I was born.
Wow.
The day that he saw that I was a boy, and I think that was his intention. Because,
so his passion was
because
boxing.
Like I said, for some people, boxing is the ultimate.
Right. So let's fast forward. So 7 years old, you're in the gym. How did it all evolve, your boxing career?
It evolved very slow.
Right.
And that's So many people are impatient. And
everybody's impatient.
Yeah, everybody's impatient. You know, some of the biggest things in boxing, and I would parallel that to any kind of success, is the ability to just hang in there.
Right.
Because you don't get better each day.
Right.
It's weird. It's like you go at the same and you just can't get it. You just can't get it, and all of a sudden you get it.
Right.
You know, boxing gains for the normal guy. Now I'm not talking about the freaks of nature. Okay, the Mayweathers and the Alis and those kind of. I can't speak for them, but for a regular fighter like me, I really had to hang in there and not see progress for a long time.
Right.
You know, long spells of time where I just felt like I was treading water and I wasn't getting it and I wasn't getting better. And then all of a sudden, boom, something happens and it's like a light goes on. And now you've conquered that we'll call it a level.
Right.
You know, and now you're on a different level. Now you're up here.
Right.
And now you're going to have to be at that level and get better from there.
Right.
So it's not your well, I'll get better every day. I go to the gym. You do. You just don't know it. So and your mind kind of plays tricks on you. The work you're putting in on a daily basis.
Yeah. So Brian Tracy used to say, or actually it was Jim Rohn, I believe, would say you have to pay for your success in full in advance.
Pay your dues.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we call it.
Yeah.
He's paid his dues.
Yep. So let's talk about what was the first time. Do you remember the first time you ever got in the ring to fight competitively?
Yes, we were. I was probably about 11.
Wow, that's pretty young.
Well, it's young, but you got guys out there 6, 7, 8 years old,
right?
And they're rolling uppercuts like Muhammad Ali. I mean, they are really, because they've been doing it since literally the day they're born. They're you know, and the first we were somewhere down in Northwest, and they had a smoker, they call them, and you know, I got matched up. I did well.
Yeah.
I don't think I won. I think I lost, but it was a good learning experience. And from then, I was thrown into a little more into that culture,
right,
of, you know, swim or drown,
right,
which that's pretty harsh, but it's also essential. You know, the you got to go. It's like you gotta beat the best to be the best,
right?
And you've got to be around the best. You got to train with the best. You got to fight the best.
Yeah.
Or you're never gonna grow.
Yeah.
And there's a big mistake with today's boxing, is just frankly, boxing is an inner city sport. Period. Okay, it's for a lot of the greatest fighters, it was a sport that they used to eat. You know, they were poor kids from poor neighborhoods, and it was their only way out. And now it's the combat sports are much more mainstream, and you'll get guys that are just crushing these. I don't know how politically correct the show is, but we'll call them yuppies. You know what I mean? And they're just beating the hell out of all these yuppie kids that are fighting, and they take one trip over the bridge to where the real gyms are, and you know they can't hang even close, and it breaks a lot of these kids' spirits. Whereas if they were in there from the beginning,
right,
they would have been brought up in that
culture,
with that level of competition.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes total sense. So let's talk about your professional boxing career. So what are some of the highlights what are some of the highlights of your pro boxing career? Some of the most exciting moments for you.
I had a very, very solid pro career. So one of my very top, when it comes to exciting moments, was my very first fight, my first professional fight.
And who was that with?
It was, it was a guy named Robert Hunt out of D.C.
Okay.
And it was just such a long time coming, and the place was packed. We were at the D.C. Armory.
Yeah.
The place was packed, and I got no respect.
Yeah.
It was funny because the guy came in to the dressing room, and when I say dressing room, I might as well say bathroom stall.
Right.
That was where I was changing, and and he says, "Hey, white boy, what's your music?" I was like, "Music? Your walkout music." And I didn't even know we were supposed to have music when we walked out, So he said, I said, "I don't have any music," because you got to bring it and give it to the DJ.
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't have any music." And so he goes, he says, "Well, here, look through this book." And I didn't have, 99 out of 100 of the songs I had to choose from, I didn't recognize. So what I did recognize was Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah.
And so I come in, so I said, "Well, do that one." So that was my first entrance song.
Yeah.
And I came in, and they're feeding this white boy to the lions.
Yeah.
Is pretty much the attitude of the crowd. And about halfway through the first round, I hit this guy with a right hand and buckled him. And whoa, my God! Did you see that?
Yeah.
And it was quick.
Yeah.
But it was a good little scrap, and I ended up knocking the guy out.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, "Hey, wow, man, you can fight. I didn't expect that." And it was a really good feeling and a fun night and great start to a career.
Yeah, it brings you back for sure.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
a lot of fun. I was on they called it a reality show. It was the most unrealistic show possible for about boxing.
Right.
But Stallone and Ray Leonard, they put them together. They teamed them up to do this NBC, The Contender, and I mean, what an experience! What an experience!
So you were on the show The Contender.
Yeah, the first year, the big year with Stallone. It was on NBC,
yeah.
And then it faded off into like ESPN, and then FX or something like that.
Rode off into the night.
But our year was the big year.
Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about your time on the Contender.
Okay.
If you're interested in expanding your audience and growing your business, consider being a sponsor of the Go With John show. If you're tuning in, so are potential customers. Head on over to gowithjohn.com, and one of our media experts will put a tailored package together that will meet your advertising needs. Again, that's gowithjohn.com. All right, so Jimmy, welcome back. So let's start. I want to hear about your time on the Contender, but first, tell me, what was your absolute toughest fight you had? Let's talk about that real quick.
That's a question I get so often. There were so many tough fights, but I've narrowed it down to one fight.
Okay.
And it was a guy named Fontaine Cabell. It was for I believe it was a USNBC, which was the last step before you get to a world title.
Right.
And one of the very few guys that I didn't like, and I don't like.
Right.
I mean, I'm dear friends with 99% of my opponents.
Right.
But I got hurt real bad in the very first round of that. We had previously fought it to a draw.
Okay.
I didn't think it was a draw, but the judges did, and that's all that counts. So, and like I said, we didn't like each other. There was a lot of bad blood, and I go in there, great shape, ready to go. I was going to knock this guy out, and damn if within the first 45 seconds, I had torn my rotator cuff.
Oh.
And I mean, it was bad. The doctor didn't know how I didn't just quit right then. And you can see it on the tape. It's almost like a Theismann type of a thing where he comes over top and just wrenches my arm. And just proceeds. I mean, I can't lift my arm, so I'm basically a one-handed fighter.
Right.
So round 2, round 3, round 4, and you never really you don't like to. Everybody says, "Oh, I'll never quit. I'll never quit," but you do think about it. You do think about it, and I was cut real bad, and he was talking to me a lot, talking to me. I mean, real vile stuff. I mean, which that
part of the game
that goes on. No big deal. But and every time we got in a clinch, I mean, he was real rough, and
rough with his words or
rough with everything, rough with everything. And I mean, I was getting hurt, and I hurt beyond, I was
physically and mentally.
No. I mean, I was damage was being the worse this arm got.
Yeah.
Damage was being done.
Right.
And I remember and Angelo Dundee was in my corner. Mm-hmm. Okay. He had come in. He worked with me for about 5 years, and this is one of the fights he was working. And I don't know, is this a rated R or whatever? Can I just speak?
You go right ahead. If it's a problem, he'll take care of it.
So I took my very first step. The only time I've never quit. Right. I've never quit, but I took a step towards quitting.
Yeah.
And I said, Angelo, I can't feel my arm.
Yeah. Because
what I wanted him to say was, oh, well, I mean, if you can't feel your arm, give me one more round and we'll see, start to justify. And he smacked me on the side of the face.
Yeah.
He said, your arm. He said, you ain't going to hurt it no worse than you already are.
Wow.
He said, get your ass out there.
Yeah.
And this is Angelo Dundee.
Yeah.
And telling me, this is like Vince Lombardi of boxing.
Right.
And I went out and I started to, when we would get in the clinches, I started to realize this guy wasn't, he might be wearing down because he's not as rough. Mm-hmm. I remember I said to him, I go, man, but this is a hell of a fight, isn't it? And he said, it sure is. And I knew I had him because all that piss and vinegar was gone. Because if I'd have said that 2 rounds before, it would have been
right.
F your mother, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it was, and I knew I had him, and broke him down a little more. And I think it was the 7th or 8th round. I ended up knocking him out. And
wow.
And went in the next morning to get my arm rebuilt, and it healed beautifully. And I had several more big nights.
Wonderful.
But that was a real tough, grueling fight to get through.
Yeah. Do you still feel the pain today when you talk about it? Do you get butterflies in your stomach or?
Not really. I miss it. Yeah. I miss the life. But you can't do it forever. You just can't.
Yep, that's right. All right, tell us about the Contender.
The Contender was I remember being in the dressing room. There was a fight, and what was the guy's name? His name was Sammy Sparkman, and this guy was a journeyman. I was supposed to blow this guy out. Mm-hmm. I remember being in the dressing room, and somebody came in and said, "Hey, Ray Leonard's here with Stallone's brother Frank." I said, really? I didn't know why they were there. And they're in the audience. So I go out and this guy he's probably 25 and 15, which is not a stellar record, and I'm supposed to blow this guy out. This guy beat the out of me for 10 rounds. I mean, I was sick on top of it. I had some kind of flu.
Yeah.
And I remember I knocked him down in the first round, and he just came back and for 10 rounds just really, really gave it to me. Now I won I did win the fight. I won, so I guess he couldn't have beat me up too bad, but there was doubt with the decision. It was just a real lackluster performance by me, and so they came in. The official came in and said, they want to come in and talk to you. And I wasn't talking to nobody. I was all beat up and bruised.
Right.
And I just said, I'm not talking to anybody.
Right.
And I found out that they had been there to scout me for this big show that was coming up, this big boxing show. And I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that because the word reality show was, in my mind, I wasn't going to make a joke out of this show. And most reality shows I had seen were a joke.
Right.
And so I agreed to go and quotation marks try out, and that was in L.A. and even though I never had any even if they picked me, I wasn't going to do it, And it was down to the last 50 people out of thousands of tryouts and everything. And I remember we were all sequestered. We couldn't see or meet or know each other. We had to train in private for the people that were casting. We had to interview in private. Everything was private. I remember I get a knock on the door. We were there something like 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Completely sequestered, and it's a knock on the door, and it's Sly, and you call him Sly. You don't call him Sylvester. He don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's Sly, and that's Rocky, man. I had never met him before, and he's standing at the door. He said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I said, how you doing? And I remember it was funny because I was watching On the Waterfront. And I brought it with me, and I had like 50 movies that I brought because I knew I was going to be waste time. He says, he tells me this story. He says, this guy here, see him? His name's Lee J. Cobb. So I said, okay. He says, I wanted him. He was my favorite actor coming up. He says, and I wanted him to be the promoter in Rocky. And he agreed, and we sat down, and he used a bad name, but casting director asked him to read this part. And I could have killed this guy because Lee J. Cobb, he says, look, I ain't never read for a part in my life. He says, take your movie and stick it.
Yeah.
He looked at me and said, good luck. And we lose this guy who was it was a dream to be in the same movie as this guy, And on the last day of shooting, his brother comes over to me. He says, Lee J. Cobb just died. And it was like this eerie feeling. This is Stallone talking. It was like my whole body went cold. He goes, God, it's just that missed opportunity, and because that was a dream, So it was just a little behind the scene tidbit about the making of Rocky and the comparing it to the On the Waterfront and so on and so forth. But he said, you don't want to be on this show. Why wouldn't you want to be on this show with all the opportunities? I said I'm doing okay now, and I'm not going to stand. as much as I love boxing, I'm not going to go in and make a joke of it in a reality show. I said these reality shows are ridiculous. You know, they make people look ridiculous in them, and I'm not going to do that to boxing. And he says, well, you know, this is different, and you know, you know what boxing's done for me, and I love boxing, and so on and so forth. And he talked me into it, and I mean, I agreed with. I mean, it is Rocky Balboa sitting there talking to me.
How do you say no to Rocky?
Yeah, you don't.
You don't.
You know. And so, you know, I agreed to go on it, and that was it. So
how much time did you spend? So how much time? Yeah, how much time did you spend on that show?
God,
you said it was one season or two?
Well, I was on one season.
Okay.
The next season, it didn't get picked up by NBC.
Okay.
It was I forget what they called it. It was some kind of artsy word they used, but it was very, very successful that one season. I got fan favorite. I was voted fan favorite. They had a open voting thing.
Yeah. What did you get for that?
I got to fight the second place fan favorite.
Okay.
At Caesar's Palace.
Okay.
At the finale, which I won. So,
nice.
And that was a pretty large purse that I won for that fight.
Nice.
And you know, the whole thing was just it opened a door out west that I had never seen, and the connections and the contacts and the stories that opened for me are priceless.
Wonderful.
You know, and I don't think there's enough time on this show to tell them all, but you know, it was just it was a great experience. I made some money. It put me in an international living room instead of just a East Coast in the United States living room, and that was reflected in the crowds that after the I mean, of course we used it as a promotional tool afterwards,
right? And
you know, the crowds grew and popularity grew, and it was good all the way around.
Wonderful.
Unfortunately, I didn't win the whole thing, but I wouldn't trade it.
No doubt. Yeah, never turn down a meeting is what I say. Right? A lot of stories about that. All right, so tell us about, you've got a really, somebody told me to ask you about, because I don't know this story, so I have no idea what's coming, but you had a phone call with a famous boxer. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's actually, if you turn that over, that calendar.
Yeah, so I've got a calendar you brought in for the folks.
So turn it over.
Okay.
So that is Jimmy Glenn. Right?
Okay.
Now Jimmy Glenn is an old school, all time great cut man. All right. Unfortunately, he was one of the casualties recently of COVID.
Oh my goodness!
At 90 years old.
That's awful.
But he's got a place. He runs a bar in Times Square.
Okay.
And you know, just one of the closest guys in as far as my career. He was probably, you know, top one or two guys as far as relationship, me and him. And he used to come here to train and you know, for camps when I would have him here, or I'd go up to New York. And I remember he came here one time. So he's sitting there and he talk loud all the time, and he's talking to this one and yelling at that one, and he was never yelling, he was just talking loud. And he was sitting on the couch and he's talking to some guy. Oh, I mentioned that he had a little bar. He owned a little bar in New York. Yeah. So there was a guy, he had a bartender named Mike, who I really liked Mike, but it was like I would always mess with him, you know. Yeah. I would always, I'd come in and shoot the breeze, and we would bust each other's hump, you know.
Right.
And so he's talking on the phone, and I mean, he's talking to Mike like you would talk to a guy that works for you, you know. And he said, I can't find it. Well, I think the number's in my pocket. Hold on. Talk to Jimmy Lange.
Yeah.
Talk to Jimmy Lange right now. I'm going to get the number. Talk to him for a minute.
Yeah.
So, you know, he keeps saying, Mike. He hands me the phone. I say, hey, man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? And my dumbass, I didn't recognize the voice. I say, what are you over there drinking up all the profit?
Yeah.
I don't know. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I kept on.
Right.
You know, probably about 90 seconds of making fun of Mike Tyson, thinking it's Mike the bartender.
Right.
You know, and and so he goes, I found the number. Give me the phone. And so I hand him back the phone. It's all right. I'll see you next time I'm up there. You know. All right. God bless. And Mike wasn't a God bless guy. You know.
Right.
And Mike the bartender.
Right.
and I hand it back, and I said, are you sure that was Mike? He said, it was Mike Tyson. And so he gets back on the phone with Mike Tyson, and I say, Jesus Christ, man, I hope Mike Tyson never meets up with me and realizes that I was the little skinny little jerk that was messing with him, you know?
Yeah.
But
he's got a sense of humor, I hear.
I'm sure he does,
Yeah.
but you know, it depends on what mood he's in.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's right.
Every time I've ever actually met him, couldn't be a nicer, humble guy.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's pretty
there's
funny.
so many of those guys in boxing, man. There's so many guys that get a bad rep because their personality in the ring that they use to sell tickets is different than their real personality.
Right.
I mean, of course, people don't judge Anthony Hopkins on Silence of the Lambs, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But they'll judge a fighter and a sports figure who has to have a certain personality. I mean, you got to put. They say, if you don't put asses in seats, you ain't gonna do nothing. Even if your skill warrants it, it's still entertainment, and you got to sell tickets.
Right. And I think that, you know, what you mentioned earlier that you're friends with a lot of your opponents.
Sure.
And I think in life, in many professions, you know, you get two lawyers that go into a courtroom and they go at it hard, sometimes for weeks and weeks and weeks in a trial, and they come out and they shake hands at the end of it. It's the same with boxing and they
have a drink at the club.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
It's no different.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love your stories. They're really amazing. So listen, let's take another quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear about your motivational speaking business, and I want to hear some of your thoughts on what it is to be a father.
Sounds good.
A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin Custom Home. So, Jimmy, during the break, you told us about an experience you had with Ryan O'Neal. So can you share that story with us again?
Yeah, this could be 15 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I got a call to do a charity and box Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
So, of course, I had heard of Ryan O'Neal. I'm a movie buff, and so I say, sure, yeah. So I go out, and, you know, I've done these things a few times. Like I did one with Mario Lopez, and you would have thought he was going to the gallows. You know, he begged me, hey, please don't hit. You know, I'm not a professional. But I got to make it look good. You know what I mean? And anyway, but Ryan O'Neal, I'm sitting in the dressing room and I hear, "You Lang," and I look up and it's him, and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "I just want to come in here and see who's I'm kicking today." And I'm telling you, he was serious.
Yeah, and how old was he at the time, do you think?
He was probably about 70.
Yeah, and how old were you?
And he 30.
And you're a 30-year-old professional boxer.
Professional boxer. And he couldn't give a
Yeah.
He was in, and he loved boxing.
Yeah. It's the head game, though. It's the sport. It's the confidence.
And I'm thinking to myself, God, you know, he's a funny guy, you know. and we go out and we put on a good show, and he hit me with everything he had and didn't take a backward step.
Yeah.
And we made it look great. It was a great performance, and the crowd was pleased with it.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really good night.
Yeah.
But it just struck me because these you know, a lot of these actors, these tough guys and everything, they're not real tough guys.
Yeah.
And but he there was no fear. There was no fear, no nothing.
Yeah.
And you know, he didn't ask me to take it easy. His people didn't ask me to take. And it was a good experience. And he comes in the dressing room afterwards, and he says, "Hey, if you ain't got nothing to do tomorrow, come on over to the house. We'll have some lunch."
Yeah.
And I went over there, right on the ocean in Malibu.
Uh-huh.
And it's him alone.
Yeah.
He's making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And he took me up and showed me the Farrah Fawcett painting, the Andy Warhol.
Yeah. And
we just sat and talked boxing for a few hours, and I left. But there was you know, no airs about him.
Right.
He's just a man's man, you know.
Passionate about boxing.
Yeah. And he loves boxing.
Yeah.
And we compared knowledge and trivia and everything else, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and you guys have been friends ever since.
Yeah. He called whenever there's a big fight. We usually talk on the phone about it and make our predictions.
Yeah.
And you know, right now he's locked away, and I guess being locked away in Malibu, but because of the COVID, you know.
Right. He's not in jail. He hasn't committed a crime
He's
that we're aware of.
Locked away like the rest of us are, and I can't wait to get out there and see him again.
Yeah, awesome. That's a wonderful story. All right, so let's talk about you're a dad. So you have 5 kids.
Yeah,
you have 2 sets of twins.
We got. I didn't realize what kept causing all these kids. And finally,
listen.
No, but yeah, we got lucky. 18-year-old boys.
Yeah, twins.
And twins. Yeah, I got a little. She's little to me, but she's not little anymore. 16-year-old daughter.
Right. Single,
and then a 10-year-old boy-girl twins.
Yeah.
And you know, it is just how it sounds. It's a beautiful chaos.
Right.
You know,
right.
They're all, for the most part, different. So you know, it's
isn't that amazing?
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the twins you think are going to be alike.
Yeah,
the twins are nothing alike.
Yeah, that's why I have twins.
Either set.
Yeah, they're completely opposite.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy. So, how many of your kids box?
Well, the babies don't.
Right.
The baby wants to, but
so how old is the baby?
The baby by 1 minute is 10. The 10-year-old twins.
Okay. But you started boxing when you were 7.
Yeah. But I'm not sure how. It's you know, I think it's custom.
Yeah.
You got to customize it. They're not ready yet. You know, some guys are, some guys aren't.
Right.
But the older boys are boxing, and They're pretty good. They're kind of taking the same path that I took. And God, I mean, it's crazy because I'll move around with them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can't really do that anymore because they hurt me. And I mean, and the only way to keep from getting hurt is to hurt them. So
Right.
what that tells me is I ain't that much better than them anymore to where I can just control them.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, really hit hard. You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot harder than I did. There's no way to know how hard
Right.
you hit, you know?
Yeah.
But it's funny watching these little things that you met and they were 6 pounds old and they were helpless, and now they're driving and they're
Kicking your tail.
Kicking everybody's tail.
That's amazing.
You know, and they, I mean, this sounds stupid, but you know, when did you become a person?
Yeah.
You know? It's amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what do you love most about being a father?
That's a good question.
See, that's my whole goal.
You always,
if I could just
you want to give me,
everybody
you want to
say,
stop me in my tracks. I think. What do I love about being a father? I love my kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a, you know, I don't wear the I'm a father as a badge of honor, because just because you got that title doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I don't say I'm a good father. I don't say I'm a bad father. That's for my kids to judge, and the game ain't over yet. When they're, you know, maybe when I go, or you know, maybe in 20 years, 30 years, they could say, "Hey, the old man was okay," or the old man was a piece of. Either way, you know, the kids are the ones that judge whether or not you're a good father or not, whether you did right by them.
Right. How important is it to you that they continue their boxing career? Is that important to you, or you want them to chase their own dream? Or
not at all.
Not at all.
I don't. As a matter of fact, I don't have a whole lot to do with their boxing.
Okay.
I don't train them.
Right.
I mean, I'll train with them and show them stuff. I talk to them a lot about it, but I don't train them. It's not a father-son thing.
Right.
I don't personally like seeing them get hit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want them to have some of the physical damage that I am still dealing with today.
Right.
You know,
Having
trouble putting your pants on. You know, because you can't lift. You know.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, with hip injuries and different stuff. I don't know. Somebody who's been through it, I don't think is real gung ho about their kid, someone they love, you know, going through it.
Sure.
I mean, one of the boys that boxes, when he was playing football, he played high school football.
Yeah.
And it was like watching a car crash. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah.
But it's not familiar to me.
Yeah.
Boxing is familiar, so I know that certain things that may look bad aren't bad. Mm-hmm. Still, you know, boxing is not a nice thing. It's not It's not a nice business. It's not even a nice sport. It's
rough.
Yeah.
It's rough, and it's raw.
It's a very good sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real good business, and and it's not a nice sport.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I'd like the boys to be something that's not going to rattle their brain, as Ali said. You know?
Yeah, no doubt.
You can't be more honest than that. I mean, it's you know, it gives you some pride to see your kid up there doing it, but if I had a choice, I'd say no. I'd rather them take a different path.
So you didn't encourage him and you didn't discourage him?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, that's a good father right there. You're letting them chase their own dream.
Yeah, I ain't gonna stop them.
Yeah.
If they want to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They know I don't want them to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I give them the respect just the same way my mother gave me. Mm-hmm. I know my mother didn't want me to box, but she never told me that. Mm-hmm. 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 You know, which is, you know, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
That you don't have your mom constantly giving you the, oh, how could you do this crap?
Yeah.
She was great, and she was ringside for every fight I ever had. You know.
Yep, and probably felt just like you feel watching.
And hated watching it.
Exactly. Cool. All right, so let's talk about life after athletics. So we were talking a little bit also on the break about just in general, when you're a pro athlete and the lights go out, life is generally not kind to retired athletes. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you put it very mildly. Not to be cynical, but just through experience, both personal and observing very close friends in the business. And I'm going to say, I'm not going to say the boxing business. I'm going to say the entertainment business,
right.
Because sports that's an entertainment business, and Hollywood, things like that. I mean, even what you're doing is the entertainment business.
We hope.
So, and so I'm going to say the entertainment business.
Right.
It is an absolute what have you done for me lately business. And it is you get die-hard people that love you to death and literally forgot your name the next day.
Yeah. Well, they love you to death and they leave you to die, right?
Perfect. I've never heard that, but
I just made it up.
I'm going to steal that. You should patent that, because that is exact.
Yeah.
They love you to death, but they leave you to die.
Yep.
And like I said, it's pretty cynical, but I've seen too many guys on top of the world, and then, it's lose my phone number when you can't produce those thrills for these people.
Right.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about that? I mean, what can be done, or what should you do, or what are you doing? Life after being a pro athlete. What is your mission?
Well, I have several. You don't just have one.
Right.
You have, I've a long time, and this has evolved quite a bit into all kinds of different ideas. And that is to run a gym.
Yeah.
And to run a gym is putting it lightly. There's so much more than running a gym, owning a gym. But I think that with my experience, I know what it takes to run a gym.
Right.
I know the kind of gym that reaches all walks, because the kind of gym that people want to go to and train sometimes ain't the kind of gym I came up in.
Right.
So you got to give different choices, and I don't want to give my whole idea on this show here, but I think it evolves. My ideas have evolved for 20, 30 years, you know.
Right.
I mean, I still think that stuff I thought when I was 15 years old is maybe work more now than it would then.
Right.
Right. But like I said, the prep is not there, because you get in this mindset when you're an athlete. A lot of athletes.
Right.
Okay. All I got to do is my road work. All I got to do is work on that jab. All I got to do is win. All I got to this and that. And they don't plan for the future, because the future's now.
Yeah.
The future's winning, and the future is being in and maintaining the physical level that you're at. And I swear to God, you never think the day will come where you can't do it. You never think the day will come.
Isn't that amazing?
And the day not only comes, it comes real quick. So a lot of guys that have gotten taken care of money wise and investment wise, but 20 times that have been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know Joe Gibbs has a charity Youth for Tomorrow, and I've been to a couple of those charity events, and he talks about, you know, the original Redskins, you know, the Joe Jacoby, the John Riggins, and Dexter Manley, a lot of those guys who made the sport never made the money. They never even had the opportunity on the front end to get paid, you know, to invest it. So it's it's definitely a tough gig. So what else are you doing? You're doing some motivational speaking.
Yeah,
and you got it, but you also have a charity for youths. Tell me about that.
It's more like a mentoring program.
Okay.
And I go around to different schools, all the way from D.C. up into West Virginia, and talk to these kids. Usually they're like at-risk type of schools,
right?
And you just do your best to connect with them. You know, you go big group or you go real small groups,
right?
And you interact with them, and you try. You're not going to reach them all,
right?
And you go into it knowing that.
Yeah.
So you try to pique interest there, and then identify that and follow up with it.
Yeah.
You know, to get these kids into something, onto a different track than they're already on, which is usually the track on its way to drugs and jail and everything else.
Right.
You know, and if you can, you know, anybody can go up in front of 500 people and make a speech and go home and whatever, and not really make a difference. But I think if you can do it one at a time, two at a time, where, now don't get me wrong, I'm not going up making a speech in front of one guy,
right?
But I'm saying,
well, you are today.
There's two guys. There's two guys. Now, but it's you use that initial presentation as a tool to kind of open up with these kids and get them to open up to you.
Right.
And as a result, you know, there's been a difference made. There's with a few kids. Some kids that I thought I was really doing something for, really making a difference. I didn't. You know, so you can't take it personal,
right?
Or else you'd quit.
Yeah. So what got you started in that? What got you in front of the kids to begin with?
Gosh, you know, I was still fighting. I had a teacher named Ari Klein in I don't even know. It's got to be 15 years ago, and she wrote me a letter, and she was up towards Leesburg area, which I live in Leesburg now, but back then I was still in Arlington.
Yeah.
And
that was a drive. And there was nothing between when you passed Sterling. There was nothing until you got to Leesburg.
Yeah.
Except the Xerox
Tyson's
building.
Corner was woods.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I think I'm going back. I think I'm.
Tyson's 2 was certainly woods.
Yeah, Tyson's 2 was wood. Anyway, she wrote me a letter, and I saw that she was close, and she said she was having some real problems with some real dangerous type kids. And I said, I'll come out there and I'll talk to these kids. And you know, I was a lot younger, I was a little more of a hothead too, you know. And
shocking.
And I always remember a story about Sinatra would go to boys clubs, you know, reform schools.
Yeah.
You know, and he would he would tell you, any young punks want to take a shot at me, come on up, you know. And I always had these visions of saying that to these real tough. I mean, these are no joke, little gangbangers, you know.
Right.
And I always had this, you know, this visions of, I ain't gonna take no from these little, you know, I'm gonna tough love and everything else. And but hell, nothing but respect.
Yeah.
Nothing but decency.
Yeah.
My dream of pulling a Sinatra never came true. And you make real friends, and you don't. The dividends aren't paid. The dividends are paid when you see these these gangbanging kids. 10 years later at the mall, walking with their family. Yeah. Their kid and their wife. Yeah. And they got a job. Yeah. And they made good instead of you lost another one. Right. You know?
Right.
So that's kind of the way that's gone. I'm still very good friends with the lady I mentioned, Ari Klein, and she's still in the system, and she's still having these guys that are it's mostly guys that are tough guys that really benefit by being around a tough guy, right, and seeing what a real tough guy can do, right, instead of a guy with a gun, and sometimes it makes a difference and sometimes it doesn't. That's the mentoring type of part of what I do. And then sometimes it has nothing to do with kids. I'll get a company who likes my message, but they want it a different way, right? And they'll have me talk at one of their expos or something like that, and it's just a different. Everybody loves boxing. Everybody it's something that they couldn't imagine doing. Right. What kind of moron goes in to a ring to punch a guy and get punched in the face? Yeah,
I'm not going to comment because you still take me out. No,
I shouldn't say moron. I shouldn't say moron. I should say what kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so people don't connect with it like they do other sports. Yeah. I never understood. I mean, I can appreciate a fight, right? I think we can all appreciate a fight, but I never did understand the mentality of somebody who wanted to do that professionally. It's and that's one of the reasons why it's so interesting to chat with you about it. The funny thing is, I don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah.
I don't. Besides ego, besides enjoying the attention, right? I don't know. I'm not sure that I understand it either. It's a different type of a presentation. I'm a different kind of a guest. Yes. And it's more cutting edge. So companies that want to kind of mix things up for their employees and things like that will bring me in to give a presentation, and it's a real mix-up. Right. It's a real shake-up because people don't understand a fighter. And I said, what kind of a moron? I didn't mean that, but. You don't understand this guy. I mean, I personally don't understand a lion tamer. Why would you want to go in? So to me, that's going to fascinate me. Yeah. We're no different than a lion tamer. We're going in to hurt and get hurt. Yeah. Legally. Yeah.
And win.
And
I think that's probably the parallel, because as I'm sitting here as a business owner and as a salesperson my whole entire life, I hear so many parallels about, when you talk about training.
There's nothing better when it comes to parallels. Yeah. You can parallel any situation in real life with boxing.
But you talked about getting to the plateau in boxing. You do that in your career, right? No matter what your career is, no matter if you want to be a rocket scientist, a salesperson, a business owner, an attorney, you learn and you train and you get to this plateau, and then you're stuck there for a while, and you keep learning, training, then you get to the next level, and you're doing it physically and mentally, because you've got. I mean, Ryan O'Neal came in and he dropped the mental game right on your lap, and he certainly got your attention. And you mentioned the other fight. Go ahead.
And this was a 70-year-old guy who I was doing a favor for.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And he still had me thinking, am I gonna have to kick this guy's ass or what? And how good is this guy, or how crazy is this guy really? What's really going on?
Right.
So he put that mental game on me, and it turned out to be fun, and it's all memories and everything, and I got a good friend out of it. But both sides of it, and the parallels to real life.
Yeah.
Because
and business.
Because it ain't real life.
Right.
That squared circle is not real life.
Right.
But there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, there certainly are.
That 100-yard football field is not real life.
Right.
That movie you're watching up on the screen is not real life.
Right.
But it certainly mirrors it.
Yeah, and I can certainly see why corporations would want to have you come in and tell your story and talk about winning and tenacity, and it's all the same thing. If you don't have the will to win, you will never win.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Jimmy Lange, thank you for coming in. Great story. So before we wrap it up, is there anything you want to say to the folks out there? Do you have another story you want to tell? Do you have?
Oh man, I don't any. Let's see, what's a good story?
Give me a good story. You got one more in you.
I'm trying to think of. The problem is I forgot which ones I've told already. Which ones? Let's see, box. I'll tell you a good story.
All right.
And nothing funny about this. It's just a feel-good story from one of my probably top. Well, we just lost one of my top 5 or so favorite fighters in Marvin Hagler, rest in peace. Mm-hmm. But there was a guy, another one that's passed. His name was Alexis Arguello. Mm-hmm. If you know anything about, he was a Nicaraguan.
Okay.
And I mean, he was a superstar.
Right.
Absolute superstar. $1 million fighter. Who, when he walked the streets, people grabbed at him. He was like, he was like a Elvis Presley type,
Yeah.
So we're in Madison Square Garden. It might have been Atlantic City, but in comes Alexis Arguello. Oh my God! Look, it's Alexis Arguello. I can't believe it. And I used to all I used to do was run around and get autographs and stuff, So I see Alexis Arguello, and I got a chance to meet him. Yeah. But I can't get to him because they're mobbing him.
Right.
And somehow he saw me, and he made a little motion with his hand, like to part the Red Sea, and it did. And I walked up to him, 'cause, I was like one of the only kids, so that's why he did it. And he says, "Hey, come here, you're going to sit with me." And he let me sit next to him for about 15 minutes while we watched the boxing match and talked about the fights. He gave me, and I'm not BSing. People think this is too crazy. He took out these glossy photos.
Right.
And he autographed it, and on the back he wrote his number.
Yeah.
And I never called him.
Right.
My father told me not to call him. Don't bother him. But he just knew what it was about, man.
Yeah.
He knew that 500 of those people, those autograph people, that making a difference with that one kid who couldn't get to him, was much more important than all those other people getting their picture with him and getting an autograph on their T-shirt. You know.
Yeah.
He knew what was important, and I had always appreciated him for that.
Wow. Amazing. Great story. And you're paying it forward. You're paying it forward.
If I was ever called as significant as that guy or some of the guys that have done for me, I would really be happy to hear that. So I'm in nowhere near the league that Alexis Arguello was in. So,
well, you're still writing chapters in your book.
I'm trying.
Yes, sir.
So we'll see one day.
Jimmy Lange, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Like what you're hearing on the Go With John show? Let us know what you think by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with your friends. To sign up for show updates, head to gowithjohn.com to join our list.